Raw and Nerdy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Raw and Nerdy. This is episode number 61. I am Joe the Widget, and I am joined by my fellow co-hosts, the Nerds Extraordinaire, starting with Rook.
What's up, everybody? Yeah, we're here. We're going to record some stuff, so let's get to it.
And Archon.
Yo, 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 Archon in the house! Bow, 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 bow.
So, we're going to be doing what we said we were going to do on the last episode. We're going to be starting a new series of Gaming Through the Ages. And we are going to be starting with Atari 2600 tonight, talking about the history of the 2600. And for me, mostly me as my childhood memories of it, because these two are too young.
No, we're not too young. It's just we played the better consoles.
See, when I started playing video games, that better consoles weren't even out.
I did play the Atari 2600.
2600 was the better console.
But when I was young, the console was Nintendo. So next week will be the start of my actual, from my childhood.
And I do talk a lot about Atari games, but I haven't really played Atari itself.
Atari games, man, there was so much history behind it. And one of the things I want to go over is like the crash of the video game industry because of Atari. And I know the reasons why. I helped write that history book at UCLA, but Nintendo was the one that brought it back. It was the literal savior of video gaming. We'll get into that next week when we talk about the NES. That one's going to be a much bigger discussion because all three of us can get into that. When we hit the Super NES, which in my opinion is one of the greatest systems of all time, that's going to be a long one. And then we're going to just go over each consoles that come out. Like, for instance, the Sega Genesis was in that mix. I'm not familiar with it too well, but I'll try.
I am. Big time.
I might have a top 3 list of the only 3 games I played. And we're going to try to do a top 10 list as much as possible throughout these different consoles. I know we'll have no issues with Nintendo, Super Nintendo, PlayStation. N64, I owned it later on when the PlayStation 2 came out, but I did own it.
Oh, N64 was one of my favorite consoles.
I'm going to have a nightmare of a time trying to figure out a PlayStation top 10 or a Super Nintendo top 10.
Yeah, it's going to be tough. There's so many good games on both of those systems. So
I mean, I had a hard time with the Atari. And it was, as I was doing the list, it brought back so many memories. Some of the games on my list, probably most of you have never even heard of, and I highly recommend checking them out, looking them up, because they were the grandfather of video gaming, and some of the concepts that came out in Atari are still used today. It's just what it was, and that's what and it's amazing when you go back and look at the simplicity of the games back then, and how they were the most amazing thing, and how I would run to my best friend's house because he had just gotten the newest and greatest release for the Atari, Space Invaders. And it was so cool because we got to play it at home, and we didn't have to play a quarter per try in the arcades, and I miss arcades so much. We should even do like an arcade top 10.
Oh, I can do that all day long.
Yeah.
Because
I got an arcade out here.
Parks Mall down the road still has an arcade.
Well, modern arcades are not like they used to be. Now it's just mostly ticket machines that you go to or racing.
No. There's
you have an arcade with a bunch of stand-up machines that you play on. That's got
I was referring to all the ones out here in California, because real arcades don't exist out here for some reason.
Yeah.
Because you're in California.
Yeah, I know.
There's a whole place out here called Cidercade.
I live in the bunghole of the United States. Sorry.
Yeah,
in the correct location for it, too.
We have a place called Cidercade out here, which has your pinballs, all your ticket games, all these different styles of arcade games.
Oh, I miss pinball machines. The real ones back in the day. Those were so much fun.
We got one out here that's not too far away from me that's got like your old school games, like your Marvel versus Capcom and all those fun games. Like they actually got I think they got a Tron machine there.
Nice.
They got the old NBA Jam. Like all the good games, man.
Spoiler, my top arcade game I was obsessed with was Killer Instinct.
Yep. I
dropped more money in that machine than I have ever dropped in a video game before.
Man, think about it this way. You drop a lot of money in these games back when we were kids. This Cidercade is $12 to play all day. You know how much of happiness I would have been in?
Oh, well, $20 back then was a lot. My allowance was $5.
Did you say 20 or 12?
12.
Still, that was a lot.
Okay.
Dude, I went through $20 in 2 hours at the Parks Mall arcade.
For those of you who can't see us right now, which is all of you, I asked Rook how much 20 or 12, and he held up his fingers like you guys could see it somehow. Apparently.
No, I was expecting you to relay it.
Yeah, there's some banger arcade games out there. We might have to do a top 10 arcade list as well.
Yeah, we're gonna have to. We're gonna throw it in there somewhere. I think the arcades, the way they used to be, that generation when they were really popular, ended around the PlayStation era. It's when home consoles were surpassing the graphic quality and playability of arcades.
So maybe after Nintendo 64, before.
Yeah, right around that.
Right around where the no, because there's still a lot of the 3D games using the more PlayStation 2, N64 graphic styles. But after that, they started tanking. Speaking of Atari, though, I want to get this decanter set. There's a decanter set out there that has the bottle looking like a CX-10 joystick for the Atari.
Interesting.
It actually looks really cool. They even have a little red button on it in the glass.
What does it do? What does it do?
Oh, yeah. And Mortal Kombat, I remember sneaking into the arcade, and we had to look out to make sure none of our parents were coming in. I remember having to jump off of that Mortal Kombat game twice, and I had the Ninja Turtles game was not far from it, so I already had a game set up to go right there and plug a quarter in really quick and start playing it. My mom and dad were never the wiser.
What would you have done if you had this all elaborate plan set up and your luck kicked at that young of an age? So they walked in and you go to jump onto the other console and somebody else is already playing it.
So this isn't a spoiler because it's not my favorite arcade game, but it'll be on my list. But take a guess which game I spent the most money on in an arcade, and it's not a fighting game.
Pac-Man.
The original dungeon one. What was it called?
Dragon's Lair?
Was it not Dragon's Lair? I forgot the name of it. Anyway, yeah, I have no idea.
Area 51.
Oh,
dude,
I played that game so much in the arcade, like so much.
Dude, that
still to this day, if I see that machine, I'm playing it.
It's funny. I wouldn't have even thought about that until you mentioned the name, and then as soon as you mentioned the name, all the images, the story, and how it all came back at once, even the sound.
There it is, Area 51. Yep.
Well, there's Area 51. There's Time Cops. There was a sniper one I used to play, and I can't remember the name of it.
There was a House of the Dead too. That one was a good one too. Or did you guys ever play that?
Silent Scope. That's what I'm thinking.
Did you guys ever play that Star Wars one that was in the big machine that you had to sit down on?
Mm-hmm.
They've had a couple like that.
And there was three. There was you could choose between like A New Hope, Empire Strikes Back, or Return of the Jedi, and you'd play different levels depending on which one you chose. That one.
I remember they had one that looked like kind of like a TIE fighter cockpit that you get inside and.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So arcades, I would always play Silent Scope, Area 51. Dave & Buster's near me had one that had a Darth Vader lightsaber duel one.
I was really big into fighter games back then. That was my go-to.
I don't know.
Well, let's talk about our weeks before we get into the Atari stuff.
I know. We're already getting off track talking about arcades. So
that's how we roll, yo.
Do it.
3 lifelong gamers talking about video games. Oh no.
Oh no, say it ain't so. So I've been back into Starfield lately. Finally finished up Shattered Space. It seemed longer with the short amount of time I had to play it, but it is shorter. But it was still fun. But like I said, I had to fit it in around work. I also watched my Longhorns play a good game against UGA, even though they lost. Best thing I did last week, though, is I finished finalizing my new character for my Pathfinder game. He is a anime-esque sword fighter. So pretty much, I worked with my GM, created him as a monk in Pathfinder with wakisashis and a katana being monastic weapons for him. So he can actually use his abilities with those. And he's a bronze dragon.
Of course, it's all, any kind of dragon or dragon thing.
Monk?
Yep. Okay. That can use a sword. It looks like he's going to be interesting because you can actually take dedications for other archetypes if your GM allows it. And I took one towards Beastmaster. So I also have a pet wolf.
Goodness. So you're basically a beast lord. A monk / Beastmaster.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And you're doing that one live, right? At one of those locations?
Yeah, that is actually a live game. I get to roll my dice. You know how long it's been
And
since I rolled my
socialize
dice?
in person?
Yeah, it's weird. No, what's great though is my very first game with this group, I rolled nat 20s every time I did a multi attack. My second attack was a nat 20. My first attack would miss, my second attack would be a nat 20.
And I know this goes without saying, but when you go to these nerd cafes and stuff to play your Pathfinder games, you're definitely bringing a raw nerdy business card, right?
Yes, I am.
Get a stack of
I
them.
hope so.
Leave it at the
I
counter.
even
hope
talk
so.
about my podcast.
I sure hope you're leaving some business cards while you're there.
What we need to do is just go get a whole bunch of business cards and go to all these different like gaming shops, stuff like that, and just leave a stack of them in there.
Yeah, if it wasn't for the fact that we lived so far away for Thanksgiving, I would have went out to there's a game store out here I could have gone to that was hosting D&D game and food and all that for people who just wanted to come so people would have people to socialize with. And I would have just taken a stack of cards and said, "Hey guys, y'all got to listen to these podcasts. They're great." All right, so as most people know, I work in the aviation industry. My background is mainly avionic.
I never would have guessed.
Well, I love learning how certain rules and regulations came about. There's a show called Mayday Air Disasters, and I've been on a binge watching that. I have been known to watch this show while flying on an airplane. So that logic there makes a lot of sense, huh?
That seems even worse than texting and driving.
That's like reading hospital statistics of death rates when you're getting ready to go have surgery.
Yeah, but it actually explains a lot about how these different accidents happened, what they found, all the investigation process, all that. So I've been back on my kick watching this. I get on it once every.
I mean, there is that
year or
caveat.
two.
I got to remind everybody that the odds of getting in an aircraft accident are far less, like significantly less than ever getting into a car accident.
You're more likely to get bit
Unless,
by a
of
shark.
course, you're watching television while trying to fly the plane.
Now, you're more likely to get bit by
I don't
a
know, with
shark.
autopilot nowadays, you might be fine.
Actually, that's against regulations, sir.
I mean, the plane would be fine for the most part.
See, the thing is you watch how autopilot works. I still don't trust autopilot. So people that are saying we need AI to do all of our flying and stuff, I don't trust autopilot enough to do stuff. I'm not going to trust full self-driving cars.
Yeah, the whole AI thing still scares me a bit. It's going too quickly, too fast with no regulations, and it's going to cause a lot of problems.
Mm-hmm. I'm still debating right now. So next year we have WonderCon, which we may or may not go to. We haven't discussed this one fully yet. But I live near Dallas, Texas. I'm in the Dallas-Fort Worth area. And next year is Dallas has the Dallas Fan Expo, I think, middle of next year. And I'm debating if I actually want to go to that because I think that'll be interesting. Outside of your Comic-Con and San Diego and WonderCon, it's one of the next more populated conventions. And then, so I'm looking at going to that next year since I can stay at my house and just drive there every day.
Okay, and that's going to be May 30th to June 1st.
Mm-hmm. WonderCon, I think, is the one that's earlier.
And that's one of the ones that's not actually owned by the Comic-Con.
Yeah, it's the Fan Expo is its own thing. It's on multiple different cities. When is WonderCon next year? March 28th through 30th. So,
A little bit of a conflict there.
Why is there a conflict there?
That's too close for my taste.
Well, I'm not asking you to come out.
It's before. Well, yeah, it's May 30th to
Birthday?
June 1st. That's like a couple months
Wasn't
away.
it like Wasn't it right at your birthday last year too?
Yeah, the last day was the day before my birthday.
Yeah, that's what I thought because I remember like basically hanging out with you.
I don't care about that.
Yeah, but WonderCon we'll end up going to, most likely, even if I got to fly out there.
I don't know if I'll be able to go or not because I don't have that time already requested off, and I have to request off time like forever in advance. So
That does suck for you, man. I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
I might be
Luckily,
living in that area around that time. We could just hang out at my place. Don't have to get a hotel.
No, that would be cheaper, significantly.
you're supposed to be living in this area by that time, widget.
Things happen, man.
Or this area. One of these areas outside of California.
I gotta go where the money's at.
So, finally, Archon and I are going to agree on this one. I am tired of effing reboots.
Oh goodness.
No, yeah, and you're not alone on that.
It's when
a lot of people
okay,
are getting tired of reboots, especially rebooting. There's some things that are so iconic that you just don't touch it.
or there's something that's still newer that you don't touch. Why reboot Scrubs when it was great the way it is? Just do a spin-off.
That's what I'm saying. Scrubs is one of those that is such an iconic show, and you just don't reboot it.
It has to be in my top five at least of my favorite TV shows of all time.
Yeah, that show's amazing. It doesn't need a reboot.
I just wish they would stop doing reboots and actually get back into being creative. At this point, I'm thinking AI may be more creative than some of these show creators because of the number of reboots that are coming out.
They're
they
chasing
can't
the money,
come up
man.
with new content. They can't come up with the new content, so they're trying to bring back the old content.
New IPs are a gamble. It costs so much now to do a show or a movie. It's ridiculous how much it costs. And they don't want to roll the dice on something that they can't guarantee they're going to get their money back on.
They just need to stop
being... So they go for nostalgia.
They need to stop being pansies and actually come up with something new and creative.
I agree 100%.
Because eventually you're just going to wear everybody out and they're going to lose confidence.
The same thing's happening in the game industry right now.
Or you'd be like Netflix. Yeah. Or you'd be like Netflix. Come out with something great everybody loves and cancel it at the end of the first season.
Or just like make a new show that's about doctors, that's a comedy, and roll with it. Like, you don't have to call it Scrubs. Call it something different. Make a new show that's a comedy. Make a new comedy. Like you don't have to reboot an old one.
Well, it would be great if they took the same idea as Scrubs, but made it about the surgeons and called it cutting or cutters. No,
I don't know. Because I mean, Turk was a surgeon, so I mean, kind of same.
But they
thing.
really didn't focus so much on him as it did the actual general practitioners.
That would be funny, just having one about surgeons and them laughing all the time. But that's a niche. I think that wouldn't last very long.
I don't know. Maybe. I mean, if they did it on the same vein as what Scrubs did, then yeah, it could be.
So I'm complaining about this.
Oh, did you know? One little thing, really quick. I know there's this doctor I watch on YouTube that likes to criticize the TV shows and stuff like that. And according to him, Scrubs is the most medically accurate show of all of them, which is ironic.
I wouldn't be surprised, to be honest.
Yeah.
No, I'm complaining about all these reboots, but spin-offs I'm okay with, and the reason being is NCIS has had multiple spin-offs, and right now I'm loving their prequel spin-off, NCIS Origins, because it's telling the story of Leroy Jethro Gibbs, and I actually am enjoying that. But
spin-offs are different than
reboots. Spin-offs are different.
But in the same note, even making live action of a cartoon is stupid in my opinion.
Yeah, but Disney's going to do it with every single one they've ever made. I am surprised that
screw up the story completely.
I am 100% surprised that we haven't gotten a live action Toy Story yet.
Give it time.
Because every other movie that they make, you
can't do a live action Toy Story.
We had one. It was called Toy Soldiers.
Why can't you? They did a live action Lion King. And that was not live action.
They did do live action toys. That was the Toy Soldier movie.
I actually like that movie a little bit.
In the same note, Disney is also doing a prequel to The Lion King about Mufasa. So that I'm okay with, as they're telling a whole new story in that regard. So I'm okay with that.
That's akin to like a spinoff. So
yeah,
again, big difference between that and a reboot.
And one thing that drives me nuts is, okay, so like The Lion King. Since we're talking about The Lion King, the live action Lion King, I don't know if you've seen it or not.
It's terrible.
But it is literally, you can't say it's terrible because it's literally a shot for shot remake. It's the exact same movie, but live action.
What made it terrible was the live action that they did. It was just raw realistic CG, and they lost all their facial expressions. They weren't animated, and I mean not animated like, drawn, but the facial expressions were not as animated and lifelike as they were in that live action. It was not near as fun.
Oh, here's who here remembers Homeward Bound: The Incredible Journey?
Of course.
Oh, of course.
I saw more emotion from those live animals than I did from CGI cats.
Yeah.
That's the thing. They need to get back to that because it's realistic because it's real. I mean,
Yeah, that
other than
was
dubbing on the
train
voices,
some.
but
It's so much easier to do CGI than train animals. I mean, come on.
it's more expensive to do CGI.
I know. Takes
Hey,
less time to do
we could,
CGI than it would be to train an animal. Like,
yeah, but it's a lot more expensive. At
Mm-hmm.
least with the dog, I can just go find somebody that trains dogs that has a dog that's well trained and get that dog to do stuff.
yeah, I agree. Like, some of the CGI is getting out of control, and it's the
CGIing a
remakes and the
mustache off.
reboots are just they're driving me nuts. Like, even like I know Widget's not, but I am a fan of the Harry Potter series. But the fact that they're rebooting it into a television show on HBO now,
Oh, I did hear about that.
really,
And there was a whole
and of course
controversy about one of the
Snape.
characters, Snape. Yeah.
Yeah, about the actor that they cast to play Snape, like, because of course, they gotta genderfy everything. Even though there's plenty of African American actors in Harry Potter, now we gotta make the white ones African American as well. And like, I don't know,
Yep.
no one's
I
gonna
would
play. No one is going to play Snape as good as Alan Rickman did. So
now
good luck.
in that regard, if he was the best out of all the people who tried out for that role, then I'm okay with it. But
What's the
if
actor's name that played in the last Star Wars series? The bad guy,
Donald Driver, not Donald Driver,
Which one?
Adam Driver?
Adam, I think.
Oh, Adam Driver. Yeah. Oh yeah, he kind of looks like Snape.
He would make an amazing Snape.
He could
Yeah.
do it. Like he would probably be all right because he looks a lot like Alan Rickman did. In that, like he looks like a young Alan Rickman.
He has
Yes.
the nose for it and everything else. It would just be great.
He has a nose for it.
Yeah.
Here's the thing. Here's the thing I have with it though. Like if they made a book into a movie and they did a pretty good job with the casting, but now they're rebooting it and they're also making a book into a television show. And in that book, they go very detailed into explaining what these characters look like.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to cast an actor that fits what the author explained that the character looks like.
Yeah. Generally, that's a good idea.
I mean, that's the point. So
I want a Harry Potter book. I want a Harry Potter movie of nothing but dogs. Dog Potter.
Why?
should just
That'd be
do
a literally
whole movie.
Harry Potter.
They should do a. They should do a. Have you guys ever seen that video that was like a big meme for the longest thing with the puppets? The Ron Weasley,
yeah.
Dumbledore. They should do the whole show with those puppets.
The best Harry Potter meme I've ever seen was someone drew a caveman doing pottery.
So, how was y'all's week?
I was sick
Me too.
all week.
Me
I got really
three.
sick last weekend, and I had to go to San Diego all week for work. I mean, I enjoyed my time in San Diego other than being sick. So I basically went to work, went to my hotel room, did nothing all week.
Huh.
Yeah.
It wasn't nerdy enough to talk about being sick, so I didn't talk about it.
Yeah, I guess we all got sick at the same time. And then I did play a lot more Starfield. I'm going to talk about a lot. I'm going to talk a lot about it on Starfield Raw because we're doing a new challenge character that I wasn't going to do but decided to do it and got invested into it. More on that in the other show. And right after we talked last week, we were talking about Mario Bros. 2 and stuff like that on our last episode. I went and played Mario Bros. 2 again. And it's annoyingly hard. I forgot how hard it can be.
What day was that I was online playing and you were playing? Was it after our last show?
Yeah.
Yeah, because I'm sitting here playing on the computer and we're chatting, and I hear in the background the noise of the game. I'm like, oh, he's playing Mario.
Then I got annoyed with it after not passing the first world. So I moved on to Super Mario World, my favorite one, and that brought back so many memories. I got to World 2 and everything, and it was so much fun.
Did you beat all the levels in the secret ways and unlock all the secrets?
Well, in the first world, yeah. There wasn't that many in the first world. There was a lot more in the second. The secret
Yeah,
pathway.
second is when you get to the Star Road and all that fun stuff.
Yeah. Then I didn't play it that long. I mean, I didn't have a way to save it, so. I've been playing a lot of PGA Tour. Well, not a lot, but I started playing the game. I wanted to get a golf game just to relax and watch a show with, and started the Corn Ferry Tour. Did absolutely terrible. I didn't make the cut on 4 different tournaments. And in golf, it's 4 days, but you have to get to a certain cut point or do well enough to make it into the final, like 50 or 100 players to make the last 2 days. And I didn't make it. That was terrible. But for some miracle, I won one tournament prior to the Corn Ferry Championship, got 3rd place in the Corn Ferry Championship, and got my PGA card. So today I played my first tournament in the PGA Tour and didn't make the cut.
Not
You got
everybody can
smacked.
dominate like we did in our RPGA Tour game.
This game's a little bit more finicky than that game. That one was more fun, I think.
Yeah.
And we were terrible in the beginning. We were
Oh
playing
yeah.
Corn Fairy and we couldn't do nothing. And all the blue, we figured it out like a light switch, and we're suddenly just dominating and got immediately sent to the PGA and wound up winning everything in that.
Mm-hmm.
And we were trading off every shot.
Yeah.
No, every
Every
hole,
shot.
every hole.
We would do 2 rounds, and we would actually cycle through because it was just more entertaining that way
Yeah.
on every hole.
Well, on the PGA Tour that I'm doing right now, they have what's the shortened mode.
Mm-hmm.
So it'll auto simulate like 5 or 6 of the holes, and then you take over and play the rest, the remainder. And it kept screwing me over. I'd go in and be like +6,
Oh wow.
and I have to try to recover from that. No, and then I at one point I was -3 on at the end of day 2. It simulated it, the last holes, made it +4, and I missed a cut. So the simulation screwed me over.
Yeah, ours was better because we were averaging -2 or -3 at the end of the first round.
Yeah. Yeah, it's been screwing with me. I want to blame the computer for me not making the cut in my first tournament, but on all reality, I didn't get more than a par every time.
That's the EA Sports one?
Yeah. And they do it weird. Like, you don't get sponsors and better equipment. You have to do these sponsor challenges, and they're annoying, and I'm not a big fan of it so far. Really not a fan. I'm going to see if there's a better one. The only reason I've been playing the PGA EA one is because it was free.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much all I did, but I did see a preview of the War of Rohirrim.
Does look good.
The full trailer of it. Yeah, I was surprised. I thought the anime style would throw me off a bit, and it did, but not bad enough to where I don't want to go see it.
See,
It looks amazing.
this is one of those movies where that it looks amazing, and I think they can do more with the anime style. That's why I've seen some of these clips for Star Wars in an animation style, and I wish they would do that because it just looks amazing.
I don't know. The animation in War of Rohirrim looked too 80s. And they had those. Then they would throw in those scenes where they put in CG, like the bridge falling and stuff like that. That looked really cool, but the actual character design looked very basic to me.
That's your typical anime style, sir.
Yeah, but old anime style. The more modern animes, they get more detailed with them.
Depends upon the anime you watch. I watch enough anime. This is actually on par with even what's the name? Critical Role's TV show, The Mighty Nine.
Regardless, I'm not a fan of the art style, but it's not going to stop me from seeing it. It's Lord of the Rings after all, and the story looks really, really good, so I'm going to check it out.
And the characters look a lot more BA than live action people do.
I still want to see Gladiator 2. Bad.
Yeah, I still want to see that one too. That one's on my list. I just haven't had a chance to. It's crazy.
Yeah.
I worked 35 and a half hours last week, which doesn't sound like a lot, but I was homesick on Thursday and Friday. So that was only Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday.
Amateur.
Yeah. Yeah, it was rough. I was running a crazy fever, and it was right when the Planes of Power launch was, and I'm like, well, my guild's doing this crazy raid, and I'm homesick and just like sitting here in my chair or laying in my bed anyway. So I was like, maybe I'll get in on this weird, crazy raid that we're doing and do it to the best of my abilities. And, I had my laptop for when I was laying in bed, or when I was down here, I was just kind of half reclined in my chair playing. And it was nuts. Like, over the course of 2 days, we raided Thursday night and Friday all day, but it was like 103-degree fever and raiding for I think took us 38 hours from when it launched till when we beat it, and we took a 6-hour break for sleep. So 32 hours. I mean, I've definitely nodded off more than just when I was supposed to, and it was fine. I had people that were helping me out and running my character for me when I needed a little extra, here and there, because I was just not feeling great. And obviously I wasn't feeling great, because if I was, I would have went to work. But
right,
it was insane. I've never done anything like that before, and can honestly say I'll never do anything like that again.
I've done 48-hour LAN parties before.
Ugh, no.
Or I slept at the desk every chance I got. The rest of the time was just gaming.
There was one guy in my guild that, or two guys in my guild that when we got our little 6-hour break for sleep, quote unquote, they decided to take that time to use it to level their characters instead of sleeping. So they were up just the entire time, and we're just like, don't know how you did it, crazy people.
That is nuts.
It was.
I'm too old for that.
Yeah. Needless to say, I didn't probably get the rest I needed to be able to recuperate the way I should have. I still don't feel great, but I am going to work tomorrow. I don't have a fever anymore, so yeah.
I gotta travel more next week.
Of course you do.
Yep.
I travel every day. I drive close to 350 miles a day.
You're not driving your vehicle, and it's an actual job.
Well, maybe when you go, if you get relocated to your other location they want to move you to, you will be able to not travel.
Yeah, the travel time would be significantly less. That's something I look forward to. We traveling between basically 4 offices, all within an hour of each other. So around that. So
that's a lot easier.
Think if you followed up with the jobs that were sending you messages out here,
I did.
Then you wouldn't have to travel at all.
You think I'm an amateur? Of course I did.
He's just not a good salesman.
I'm starting to wonder.
Well, I'm not going to get into this on the show because I might actually get upset, so we're not doing that. I'm kidding. I'm not getting upset. But
how dare you?
I know,
right?
Did you just hurt yourself?
Yeah.
He was messing around and hurt himself.
I messed around and found out.
I also finished the Superman and Lois show. It was the last episode, and it was one of those bittersweet moments for me because I've been watching the Arrowverse since like the very first episode of the very first season of Arrow, and I've watched through all of the different shows, and Superman and Lois was the last Arrowverse show left, and it had its finale, and now it's done. The whole Arrowverse is done.
Never even heard of that term until now.
I've heard it a lot. Pretty much DC's.
All of DC's television shows, yeah.
So
they had
now
Arrow,
you can get
and
ready
then Flash, Supergirl, Legends of Tomorrow, Superman and Lois.
Now you can just get ready for Wheel of Time season 3.
Yeah, it comes out in March.
Yep.
I'm ready for it. Don't worry. You don't have to worry. I follow that like a hawk.
He's got it on his calendar, ready to go.
I get alerts.
It's the only reason he has a paper calendar, so he can mark it, circle it, point arrows out.
I don't even have a paper
Little hearts.
calendar. I have a whiteboard calendar. I don't even have a paper calendar. Yeah, I just get alerts on my phone and stuff when new info regarding the show comes out because I want to know when the next season is all the time. So I don't think that they're following the books as well as they could, but I think they're doing a decent job with the show. It's entertaining. I enjoy watching it, so I'd like to keep watching.
You really can't. We've talked about this before, but you really can't with TV shows and movies follow the books exactly because it would be way too long, and in many cases, it doesn't translate well into a TV or movie.
It is much easier to do it into a TV show than it is into a movie because then you got like the course of a whole season to fit a book in rather than 2 hours, 3 hours for a movie. So a TV show is definitely easier, but
the only problem I have with translating a book into any kind of visible media is the fact that there are the thought processes you're reading in the book that you don't pick up on in TV or movies.
Right.
But in series of how you convey stuff, animation, TV, and then movie in that order is the best way, in my opinion, to do book to visual media.
My thing is like, obviously you can't follow it exactly. And I get that. You're going to have to leave some stuff out. It's when they completely change things that happened in the book and make them
I agree 100%. Yeah.
completely different in the show. That's what bothers me.
I mean, there's some things you can't. Game of Thrones, for example, if they would have followed the book exactly, there would have been a lot of people in jail.
Been rated X and...
Yeah, because the ages of characters in the book is a lot younger than what they portrayed on show.
Yeah, okay, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about, like, for instance, in the Wheel of Time, when, like, at the end, I think it was of season 1, they all, like, go through the Waygate, and they leave Matt behind. He's a big part of that story going through that gate. He's supposed to go through that gate with them. Like, having him not go made no sense at all. There was no reason to change that aspect of the story.
Okay, so you're talking about changing stuff just to change stuff and not due to constraints.
Right. Like he is a big part of that crew, and he's supposed to be going through that gate with them, and they just completely made that not exist.
That's weird.
Or like, I don't know, there's certain people that are supposed to meet up at a certain point that like that's a huge impact on the story later, and then they just never do it. It's like, now why did they do that? Like, there's no reason for them not to have.
So we're starting our Gaming Through the Ages series, and we're going to start right at the beginning. The Atari 2600. Well, it's not really the beginning. There was arcade and Pong that was prior, but this is as close as you're going to get to mainstream, like home gaming.
I mean, Pong was on Atari as well.
It was, but it was first its own system before the Atari.
Right.
And the Atari 2600 actually came out September of 1977.
Before I was a twinkle in my mom's eye.
Yeah, it was before I was born. It released at a price tag of $189.95. To put that in perspective, in today's money, that's $960.
Yeah, that was a lot of money back then.
So it was a crazy amount of money. That's why I'm not surprised I didn't get one until like the 1982 or 83 when it was much cheaper.
Right.
And it didn't get discontinued until 1992. It was one of the longest running game systems ever.
Surprisingly, since it was the direct cause of the gaming crash.
Yeah, it was. It really was. They did, that 4-switch model that everyone remembers the most? That one was the one that came out in 1980 to 1982, and it's still the most popular one they ever made.
Mm-hmm.
And the funny thing about it is that it's only 8-bit, only 1.19 megahertz, and only had 128 bytes of RAM.
Bytes. Yes, he said that correctly.
Bytes.
Bytes of RAM.
That's 1/10 of 1 meg. No, 1/100th of 1 meg.
1/100th of a meg, yeah.
And yet they were able to make these games that were actually extremely entertaining with that very limited technology. Well, that was actually top-line technology back then. But I do have my top 10.
I got mine.
Now, I did play all these religiously as a kid because I did have an Atari 2600 for many years. I think I was 6 when I was 6 until about 9 or 10. And then I didn't play the after that, but
I didn't play the Atari until I was in my 20s. When I worked at a pawn shop, and we had every system you could think of in there, and we would hook them up and play them just for fun. Atari was one that we hooked up a lot because it was fun. And why not?
One Christmas, my mom and dad bought me my own TV to go into my room for my Atari, and they let me have the Atari go into my room. It was a black and white, little 30-inch TV, one of those big old CRTs. And I remember having a cabinet TV that was my first color one in my room, one of those giant cabinet TVs. It was my first color TV. Man, I feel ancient. The Atari 2600 sold 30 million units as of 2004. Used a ROM cartridge. And it was crazy. Do you guys know what the best-selling Atari 2600 game of all time was?
Yes. The one that's filling all the landfills.
No.
Gosh, what was it?
E.T. is not it. It was...
Space Invaders?
Nope.
No, I know this. One of those pieces of knowledge that are way in the back of my head. I just got to unlock it. I know this.
Space Invaders was actually the second highest selling game. And it sold 6.2 million copies.
Just tell me. I can't get through enough doors.
Pac-Man.
Oh,
I forgot about that one.
Just over 8 million units sold.
That makes sense. Yeah.
Followed by Donkey Kong. And then one of the games that's on my list, Pitfall. Mostly are kind of games that you can think of. Like most of the games that came out for Atari, especially in the early days, were ports from arcades. Right. Like Pac-Man, Space Invaders, Donkey Kong, all that was ported over. But then they started making their own unique games. And when it came to the unique game that only was released for the 2600 first, was Pitfall. That was the highest selling one that they made.
It was a good game.
Loved it.
Solid.
I'm curious about what your list is.
Well, you're going me first?
Yeah, I'm going to let you go first. I'm the one that played as a kid.
Okay, here we go. Number 10, Pitfall, as we just talked about. That game was pretty fun.
Actually had an ending to it. One of the few Atari games that had an ending.
I mean, yeah. Number 9 was a game called Sword Quest, kind of RPG-ish.
I forgot all about that one. That's like one of the original RPGs.
Yeah, Sword Quest, which is pretty amazing. Number 8, Space Invaders. Everybody played Space Invaders. We all played Space Invaders.
I owned it. I just not on my list. It wasn't one of my favorites.
I liked it. Well, I played a very I didn't play every Atari game. That would have taken I only played a certain few, and the more popular ones were the ones that we had there that we could play. So, number 7, Asteroids, another fun one. But you got to have the little ball controller, otherwise you can't play Asteroids. Not properly, at least. Number 6, Vanguard.
Okay, I do remember Vanguard.
Vanguard was one that I really enjoyed. So that's the top of my list. Now we're getting into the good ones. Number 5. If you've ever seen the movie Ready Player One, you know of this game. It's called Adventure.
Oh yes, that one they
You're just a
highlighted
little
that one big
dot
time.
moving around on the screen.
It was at the first Easter egg.
Yeah, the first Easter egg ever was in the game Adventure. You could find the creator's name at the end if you could get to the end.
Do you remember why?
Not,
That was such a big deal? Because they didn't have credits in the games. There was not enough memory to do so.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Besides, the credits will only be one name. There was only one person that made the video game.
Number 4, Pole Position.
Good one.
Racing game. That was a fun game. Even though I couldn't even play that game if I wanted to now. It's so bad.
I played it in the arcade.
Yeah, I played it in the arcade too, and that's why I played it. It was one of the games that I enjoyed playing on Atari. Number 3, Dig Dug, which Dig Dug is an amazing game, and when we get to the Nintendo list, Dig Dug 2 is going to be on my Nintendo list because I played the crap out of that game. It is so much fun. Have you ever played Dig Dug?
Yes, of course I have.
You ever played Dig Dug?
Trying to remember it. Oh, now
on the Nintendo?
No.
You got this little like hammer, and you have to like blow up certain points of the island to make the little monsters fall off, and then like you could like shoot a hose into their mouth and make them blow up, like get all big and blow them up. Anyway, game is fun.
I remember it. Now that I look at it. Yeah.
Number 2, I know this one's probably on everybody's list that ever makes an Atari list because this is hands down one of the best games on Atari. It's called Yar's Revenge.
Nope, not on my list.
What? How dare you?
Wasn't a huge fan of that.
That game is great. And then number 1, because I love a challenge. E.T. is my number 1 because
really?
I played that game so much trying to beat it and always failed because I'm pretty sure that game is impossible to beat.
Yeah, exactly.
It is so hard. But it was the fact that it was so hard was fun to me. I really enjoyed how hard it was. That was
one of the first games ever released that was more bug-ridden and possible to where it was unplayable.
I mean, it was playable. It just was very, very hard.
I made my list completely off of what I was obsessed with as a kid. The games that I just couldn't get enough of. And my number 10 is Donkey Kong. For a while, I was obsessed trying to get to the kill screen, which was the ending, I'm using air quotes here, for most Atari games, when you ran out of RAM. Number 9 was Defender. You guys remember what that one was? One was?
That one almost made my list.
Yeah, Defender was fun. I remember correctly, it had multiple stage variety, and doing a repeat of over and over again actually brought in variety to it. River Raid was my number 8.
That was a good one. I did play that one.
That one is one of the ones that brought a whole ton of memories when I looked at the screens of it. And some of these games I went to on YouTube and actually watched people playing them just to bring back those memories. And it was that one had to make my list. I should have actually made that one a little bit higher, but 7 is Missile Command. I played that one a lot with my parents. Got very good at that one.
I thought that one was on my list. I must have switched it. It was on my list at one point. I must have switched it out.
I think when I get into my top 5, a lot of people will not remember a lot of these. But Kaboom was number 6. And that's where you had this bank robber dropping bombs on top of the screen, and you had to catch them on the bottom using that wheel paddle. That was one of my favorite things to do with the Atari, is using that paddle.
I don't think I ever played that one.
Near the end of the life of the Atari was my favorite game was Winter Olympics. And you actually could get silver medals and gold medals and all that kind of stuff and do events throughout the Olympics and get who got the most gold medals or medals period. Like the slalom, they had figure skating. It was such a good game and way more advanced than most Atari games. Cosmic Ark is my number 4. And let me see.
I don't think I've ever played that one.
So Cosmic Ark was this giant UFO that sat in the middle of the screen. You were out in space, and it shot 4 directions, up, down, left, and right. And you had asteroids coming at your whole job was to protect the spaceship. So you were shooting asteroids in the direction of the asteroids are coming on your joystick. It was simple, but it got incredibly challenging very, very quick. You were basically the mothership. And you had to pick up, missions would come in. You had to go land on a planet, and you had to pick up your ground crew with your tractor beam. And then you go back into space, protect it, go back down, pick them up. That's a repeating pattern. Where am I at? Okay, so that was my number 4. Number 3 was one that I could not remember the name of, but I remember the game perfectly. Moon Patrol. So you're playing a little buggy on the moon, and you had to jump over pits, and there'd be rocks that you had to shoot. And every time you shot, you'd go missiles up straight up and then missile straight ahead. Because you'd have aliens come in and start trying to attack you as you're going through the moon in a constant movement. Super challenging, and the music was addicting. It was so much fun. Pitfall's my number 2, and only Atari game that I actually wound up beating. And then my number 1 was Warlords. Warlords is like Pong, but 4-player. And I've been playing my friends and my family in that all the time, and had an unbeaten streak for the longest time when I was a kid. You had to protect your base. It was like a cross between Pong. No, it was not Pong.
It's like one of those block
yeah,
destroyer games.
That almost made my list too because I love those. It was why can't I think of it? Breakout.
Yeah, Breakout's fun too. You know what game I'm surprised is on neither of our lists? The one game that comes to everybody's mind when they think of Atari, Frogger.
Oh, yeah.
I only played that on arcade.
Yeah, I'm surprised that's not on either of our lists because that's like.
And then there was like the regular ones like Asteroids and Space Invaders and Pac-Man, all that.
Yeah,
but
I had those on my list.
And Miss
I didn't have
Pac-Man.
Pac-Man on my list. When I think of Pac-Man, I don't really think of the Atari. I think of either arcade or like Nintendo. I don't think of Pac-Man on the Atari.
Okay, well, that's true. I mean, it was way more popular in the arcade than anything else.
Just like Mario Bros, that one's on Atari too, but think of that one on Nintendo, not on Atari.
Do you remember a game called Freeway?
No.
It was like Frogger, but better, and you were like getting this chicken/dinosaur looking sprite up. It was like Frogger, but more complex, and it was so much fun. It was a chicken. It just looked like a dinosaur thingy.
You're helping the chicken cross
the road.
You're answering the lifelong question.
And there was a game that was another version of an RPG, but was kind of controversial, was Atlantis. I don't remember why it was controversial, but it was, and I don't remember why. But yeah. And then I remember you had to save people from the death rays and things like that, but Laser Blast! I was just looking at a list, and I remember that one should have made my list. Ah.
Too late. Too late.
I
List
completely
has already
forgot
been
about
told.
it. Yep. And we were talking about the crash of video games. It was because Atari was pushing video games out so quickly that they were flooding the market. That one person would design it and develop it, and it usually took about 2 months or less to develop and build a game, they stopped caring about quality and content and just wanted to push them out the door. And it became so flooded so quickly that people lost interest. And eventually, I remember my grandma taking me to the toy store because they were selling Atari games for $5 a piece.
Yeah.
Man, she'd let me go in there and pick out 3 or 4 of them. Now that was the greatest thing ever.
We had like a ton of them at the pawn shop, and we would sell them for like anywhere from like $1 to $2 a piece because they were just practically worthless. There was just a million copies of every single one made. It was really bad.
I wish I still had my Atari games. My Atari. I wouldn't be able to hook it up really, but
no.
I kind of want to play Moon Patrol again.
There's emulators.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. I want to play that one, see if I can find Winter Olympics.
You can't get the same Rolly controller for your...
No, I can't play Warlords.
It's not the same. You don't have the joysticks.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I guess you can get a plug-in joystick, but...
It's that haptic feel of the joystick. And the one
They
button.
do have... they have those little joysticks that you can buy that are like $19.99 and have like 10,000 pre-made Atari games on them where you can just play all the old games with it. They just plug right into your TV, too.
And next week, we're going to be talking about the NES. I'm sure we're going to dedicate more time to that.
Oh, yeah.
I'll actually have a list for that one.
Yeah, we're going to have to give that one more time because less time on our weeks, more time on that list because that list is going to have a lot of talking points, especially if our lists are different.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And I think they will be.
Which they will be. They will be for sure.
I think when we did our original top 10 video game list, I think I had 3 of those games were Super NES on that list. And they're going to be the same spot.
I have a feeling that there's one game that will be on all 3 of our lists, but other than that, I think our lists are going to be pretty different.
Which one, Chrono?
No,
that's
the
the
Nintendo
list. The regular Nintendo?
Yeah.
Most likely.
There's probably one game that'll be on all of our list.
Super Mario Bros. 3?
Probably.
Yeah. That was one of the
Jerry's
greatest.
Like, yeah, that's fair. that game is elite level Nintendo. So
I will say I like that game way better than I do 2.
Me too.
Everyone did.
One.
Everyone
I like
did.
it
That
better
game
than
was
one.
amazing.
That's
And we'll get into why it was
best
amazing.
Mario. Yeah.
So you had a news article about Atari?
You already talked about it.
I already talked about it.
That's right. I'm just losing it.
Did
What
the
other-
canter.
We got a couple little different news articles, like the fact that Indiana Jones and the Great Circle is actually starting to get very good early reviews. But one of those early reviews is by IGN, so I'd be concerned.
True. Usually things they say give good reviews to end up being bad games. So
Usually.
However, the one game that we have talked about a lot on this show, Path of Exiles 2, that has released in early access, and that is getting insane reviews. I have heard nothing but just people raving about this game and how it's early access, but it's almost perfect. So I might have to check it out. I don't know when, but maybe soon, because it looks really, 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 really good.
Yeah, it's getting an
It's
average
got a-
rating of 4.1 out of 5.
Yeah, it's and that's pre-release too. So that's like, I don't know. I've heard from both reviewers and players. Like, I've seen people playing it. I've like everybody in my guild on EverQuest is also like, we need to hurry up and finish this raid so I could go play PoE 2. And like, everybody's like all about it. And
I still can't wait for Avowed.
I don't know. I've heard.
That's my thing. And we got one
Yeah,
news article in books.
oh yeah. So I was going through doing my morning business when I was scrolling through my Google News feed, and I have a lot of book
least
stuff
you're
come up
regular.
on my Google News feed. Yeah. George R. R. Martin is fully aware that it's been 13 years since he started writing The Winds of Winter, and he isn't concerned he'll be able to finish it, but he has, in some interviews, sounded like he is concerned if he will be able to finish the rest of the series, because there's another book after this, especially with this book taking 13 years. And he's now going to be working on another TV series too.
That
Oh,
is
geez.
one heck of a writer's block right there.
Yeah.
It's either
13
writer's
years.
block or he's just busy doing a bunch of other stuff and isn't focusing on that book.
Yeah, his highest selling book series ever, and he's not concerned about it.
I said, well, think about it. He's making money. He made money off of HBO Game of Thrones. He's making money hands over fist with the IP already.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why I think that he'd want to finish it out and be done with it and continue making
Just-
money as he retires.
Just do what all the other big authors do. Just sign it over to Brandon Sanderson and let him finish it.
I thought the original author died. That's why Brandon got it.
Robert Jordan
Yeah.
passed away, and Brandon Sanderson was a huge fan of the books. So Robert Jordan's wife reached out to Brandon Sanderson and asked him if he would. I guess Robert Jordan hand selected him and said, "I would like him to finish my books." So
Good choice. Very
gave
good
him all the
choice.
notes and let him finish it. Yeah, it actually was like, it was pretty seamless. There was very little that you could tell that the writing style changed when it switched hands. So that was good.
Okay, here's the quote that got me interested in this article. George R. R. Martin tells THR that he doesn't know if he'll ever finish The Winds of Winter. Unfortunately, I am 13 years late. Every time I say that, I'm like, how could I be 13 years late? That is what got me interested into that article.
Okay. Yeah, I can see how that would catch your attention.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Well,
so,
he keeps adding to the story. I don't think even if he finishes the sixth book or the last book, he'll still have more of a story to tell.
yeah, that's going to wrap up tonight's episode. We're going to be doing part 2 of this series, and then going into NES, and it's going to be a lot more fun and entertaining as we go on, as we get into it. We had to start with the Atari 2600, to be fair. And I have a lot of childhood memories of it, but you really can't talk too much about Atari games. Yeah, I jumped and I shot.
There are some systems we are going to skip, obviously. Like, we're not going to do like the ColecoVision and
Oh, yeah.
Or the
Weird.
Panasonic 3DO or...
yeah, like your Commodore 64 and your Intellivision, like all those. We're going to.
I think even Dreamcast should be skipped. That thing had a very low life.
There was some bangers on Dreamcast, though.
A top 5 list. With
Your top
Dreamcast.
10 list is going to be all the games that came out for it.
Maybe we'll bundle that in and do like a short list for that with another one that day or something.
Yeah, quite possibly. We'll have
Like-
to figure that out.
Like the Dreamcast and the GameCube together or something.
Well, no, because
GameCube,
GameCube has a
yeah.
lot of good games.
I have a huge memory of that system. Oh, jeez. I think most of my list will be made up of Mario Party,
There are 42 games for the Dreamcast.
Yeah, see?
compared to the hundreds and hundreds for every other system that came out.
But there are some bangers. There's not a lot of games, but there are some really, really good games. So
Yeah, one of the first game I ever worked on, it first went multiplayer on Dreamcast. And you'd use a dial-up modem to do it. The first online multiplayer. All right, guys, that was it for episode 61. If you guys want to reach out for this show for business such as advertising, things of that nature, podcastraw@gmail.com. Our Discord is still the place to be. Discord.gg/raw podcasts. It's the best place to go. If you don't know what Discord is, look it up. Our X is @podcastraw. Our Facebook is Raw Podcast. Our Instagram,
Raw Podcast 1.
and you can find me everywhere individually as @thewidget, THEWIGIT, everywhere.
And you can follow me anywhere as some variation of Tomcat213 or Rook213.
And you can find me on all social media as the Archon606 or on all gaming platforms as QWICK_D_606.
Thank you so much for listening, everybody, and have a fantastic nerdy week.
Have a great week, guys.
Y'all stay nerdy now. You hear?